Did you know that you can go into your US asylum interview with confidence, armed with the right knowledge that's going to help you increase your chances for success? In this video, I'm going to help you do exactly that by providing you with 10 tips for acing your asylum interview in the USA. Follow these tips and I'm confident that you'll improve your odds for winning your case. Now, stick with me to the end because tip number 10 is definitely the most important. I'm Brian Manning, and I used to be an asylum officer with the government, but now, as an asylum lawyer, I help immigrants all over the country to secure their future in the United States through asylum. Are you ready? Let's do this. Asylum interview tip number 1, accept that you're not in control. Now, understandably, you want to control the narrative at your asylum interview, but you need to be prepared for the asylum officer to interrupt you and to ask question after question after question. You unfortunately don't just get to tell your story and express yourself and explain your case as you see fit. Instead of trying to control the conversation, be flexible and adapt to the officer's line of questioning. There are techniques to ensure that you communicate the necessary information, but just remember to let the interview flow naturally. Also, be prepared for the possibility of having a tough or unsympathetic officer. Keep in mind that even if the officer seems difficult, it doesn't necessarily mean that you won't be granted asylum. All right, tip number 2, dress appropriately. Your attire may not technically have anything to do with establishing your eligibility for asylum, but it does influence the officer's impression of you. Avoid dressing too casually, sloppily, or immodestly. Opt for a clean, well-groomed, and respectful appearance. Some good examples include wearing a button-up shirt or khaki pants or a modest dress. You can also choose to wear your country's traditional cultural attire if it makes you feel comfortable and confident. Also, remember to bring a jacket in case the room is cold. This seems to be the case very often at the asylum office. All right, we're at tip number 3 for having an outstanding asylum interview. Avoid guessing. If you don't know the answer to a question, simply say, "I don't know," or "I don't remember." Avoid making up answers or telling the officer what you think they want to hear. This may be tempting to do, but please don't. It can ruin your case. If you're uncertain about a particular detail that you're being asked about, consider using phrases like "I think," or "around," or "approximately" to indicate your uncertainty. This way you won't be accused of inconsistencies in your testimony if you say something that is a little bit off from another statement that you've made or from information that you've provided in your documents. Next, tip number 4, seek clarification. If you don't understand a question or you need further explanation about an instruction, don't hesitate to ask the officer. It's better to clarify the question than answering based on a misunderstanding, which could lead to perceived inconsistencies in your testimony. Okay, we're ready for tip number 5. Keep your composure. The US asylum interview can be long and challenging, but you need to remain calm and even-keeled throughout. Even if the officer is hostile or interrupting you, it's crucial to keep your emotions in check. It's not uncommon for these interviews to be emotional. You'll be asked to talk about traumatic experiences, and that can be tough. Bring tissues in case you become emotional, and remember that you can take a break if you need to collect yourself. Taking a short break can help you regain your composure, and it's completely fine to ask for one if you get too frustrated or overcome by emotion. Asylum interview tip number 6 is all about honesty. It's essential to be truthful during your interview. Officers are trained to spot inconsistencies and lies, and being dishonest will only hurt your case. Being honest is not just the right thing to do, but it's also the smart thing to do from a strategic perspective. A lot of things that people think will hurt their case aren't really as damaging as they may seem, but lying about something, well, that is a big deal. It can definitely get your case denied. In addition to being honest and not lying, you also need to proactively be forthcoming at your interview. Don't try to evade questions or mislead the immigration officer with a technically true answer. Just be honest and upfront about everything. Okay, tip number 7, don't interrupt the officer. When they're talking, don't try to jump in, eager as you may be to tell your story. Interruptions will frustrate the officer, and you don't want them to be frustrated with you. An asylum officer's job is hard and stressful, and the last thing they want is for an applicant to prolong the interview by constantly interrupting them. By the way, if you want to maximize your chances for asylum success, then be sure to hit the subscribe button and the bell notification so that you don't miss the insights that I share on this channel. All right, back to our list of asylum interview tips. Tip number 8 is to stay focused. Asylum interviews can be long, emotional, and mentally exhausting, and it's crucial to stay mentally present and focused throughout the entire process. It's easy to lose focus as time goes on, but every question matters too much to just check out and sort of give up. To preserve focus, you should bring food and water, take breaks, and prepare and practice beforehand. Also, by being proactive and focusing on one question at a time, you can make the interview process easier for yourself and tell your story effectively. I know it's hard, but stay present. Stay in the moment, focused on what's going on, okay? All right, on to asylum interview tip number 9. Be proactive, understanding that you can't rely on documents to tell your story. While submitting documents is important for setting the stage and giving the officer necessary information, it's not as important as the interview itself. Officers are much more interested in what you have to say at the interview than they are in your documents. Also, the officer might not have carefully read your documents before the interview. So it's up to you to tell the officer at your interview everything that they need to know in order to see that you deserve asylum. You cannot just think, well, I don't need to mention that particular thing because, well, I provided evidence about it in my application materials. No, don't do that. You've got to express all the important details at your interview, okay? And finally, the last and most important tip, number 10, listen carefully to every question and directly answer the exact question being asked. There's nothing more frustrating for an asylum officer than an applicant who ignores the question and just tells the officer what they want to tell them. You can't do that. You have to listen extremely carefully to every single question and try to answer the precise question being asked. Don't provide a bunch of background information or context, and certainly don't try to dodge the question. Rather, address it head on. Doing so succinctly, but with enough detail to actually give the officer what they're after. And know that at the end of the interview, you'll get a chance to tell the officer anything you want to tell them. So that's when you can talk about things that are important to your case, but which didn't come up in response to the questions being asked. So you can use that opportunity rather than trying to cram into your responses a bunch of stuff that doesn't have anything to do with the question asked. Follow these tips and you'll have a great interview. If you're ready to take the next step and get individualized help with your asylum case, then call my office today. And remember, we help people all over the country, so it doesn't matter where you are. Call us now to schedule an asylum strategy session so that we can help you secure your future in America through asylum. Again, I'm Brian Manning, and it's an honor to serve you in your asylum journey.